Hey y'all, hi. So on a recent video, one of my ever brilliant commenters left this comment. It sounds like the inner child was feeling neglected and, as always happens eventually, demanded attention. This happens to me when I've been adulting too much and not given myself enough time to play, that is, to be myself away from the demands and expectations of others. I love this and I have a lot to say about it, and I thought that rather than keeping it to myself or just, to dinner conversation with Joe, that I would share it with you and discuss. If you're here watching me for the first time, then welcome. My name is Hannah. I'm an online content creator and writer. I'm actually the author of a newly published prize-winning collection of poetry, which I will link at the top of the description box down below. And I love to think out loud about aesthetics and the philosophy of happiness here on my channel, among other things. If you like it, I hope you'll subscribe, and let's get right into the meat of this video. So the inner child acting out, my actual child is acting out. If you hear a crying child, it's not just atmospheric sound. So the inner child acting out, I want to give credit to my friend and mentor, Julia Frodal. Part of the reason I'm able to think and talk about the self this way is because I took her amazing course, the MAP course that she offers. I think it's called A Map to Wholeness and Self-Love or something like that. I will link that as well. I haven't done the type of therapy called internal family systems that you all are always talking about in the comments, but I think that there are a lot of correlations. Julia's MAP course has been life-changing. And I'm not a therapist or a specialist or anything, but I'm excited to shine a light on some of these ideas in this video for my own sake as much as anything. This comment, which I'll put back up on the screen, was in the context of my recent video about reverting to online browsing behaviors in the context of stress and overwhelm in my life. And I do that. I slid back into that behavior because it's such an efficient and easy way to have relief. It stimulates dopamine, it's procrastination, it's distraction, it's disguised as productivity kind of, because researching purchases often feels like a self-improvement project. So it's seductive. Online browsing is seductive in all of these insidious ways, chemically, emotionally. It soothes the hurt part of the self. At least that's the case for me. And I'm trying to do less of it this year. I've been making videos about that, and that was the context of this comment. And I think the comment does a good job of pointing out something really important that I've seen some others of you say in the comments as well, which is that just because an escapist habit of choice is unhealthy when it's done to excess, and because of that it does need to be controlled, it doesn't mean that a person doesn't need escape and relief at all. In fact, a large part of why I'm working on browsing less is that it's not really relaxing. I tell myself I'm taking a break from work or from the stress of life to browse online, but a break should mean calm, a chance to reset, a chance to kind of get back in touch with my mind and my body, an opportunity to let my mind wander naturally. Online browsing or scrolling, doing anything online really, is the opposite of that. Highly stimulating, puts the brain into overdrive, disconnects me from my body, and keeps the mind from wandering. Doesn't allow the mind to wander. It's not restful and it's not a break. But the inner child, this is what this comment makes me think about. The inner child maybe isn't wise enough to know that. Just like an actual child would stare at a screen all day if you let her, the inner child wants to and would stare at a screen all day. Screens are massively, unnaturally addictive, which I knew before, but just quick plug, side note for what I think is the most brilliant book I've read in the past 5 years, Stolen Focus by Johann Hari. All that I thought I knew about how addictive screens are has been reframed, recontextualized by that book. I'll link it in the description box down below too, and it's such a pleasure to read. Screens are wildly addictive by design, so difficult for us to resist at any age. But again, they aren't actually restful to engage with. So in this case, as this brilliant comment was suggesting, perhaps the pouty, whiny, overtired part of myself needs the wise adult part of myself to guide her towards activities that actually are restful and rejuvenating. I think the comment hit the nail on the head. I have been walking around for the past couple of days thinking my inner child is in need. What does she need? That's what I've been thinking about. What does she need? And I think she might need one of two things, or both things, probably both, but in any given moment or on any given day, one of these two things. The first, of course, is play, as already indicated by Melanie's comment. So what does that mean? That's kind of what I've been asking myself. The first things that spring to mind are makeup playtime and closet playtime, a kind of play that I've talked about a lot on my channel in the context of being a person who is a passionate lover of beautiful things. I often talk about makeup playtime as a way of redirecting oneself away from the desire to buy new makeup. Playing with your existing makeup is much more satisfying, and that's the case with closet playtime as well. Digging out old clothes that you forgot, coming up with new combinations of outfits, playing with those beautiful things at a time when the stakes are low because you're not actually getting dressed to go somewhere, putting on makeup to live your adult life, you're just playing. Of course, I think in those cases, you run the risk of having your adult life as too present a companion, especially with closet playtime. If you're messing with your clothes, you start thinking, oh, this would be a good outfit for work. This would be a good outfit for impressing people at a party. The urgency of the adult ego kind of inserts itself quite easily. So a purer option than that is just coloring, drawing, art. I think that there are crafts. I mean, many people do crafts. Art, you might already have a craft that you do, something like knitting or tufting. But one of the things that I keep thinking about in this context is not to underestimate the intensely therapeutic nature of just drawing, just straight up drawing, where there's just the blank page and some kind of implement, because it's so open-ended and it's also so low stakes, because it's like when you're knitting, you're like maybe trying to make a scarf, trying to make it look good. And a lot of you can do that, but it's like an added level of pressure to perform. If you're just drawing, even just abstractly, it's like, it's so separate. It's so its own thing. It's so only for the sake of itself. So pure. And I feel like therefore a direct tap into the inner child. Maybe you haven't picked up a crayon or a marker for years, like since you were in school. Maybe you're listening to me and you're thinking like, why would, or on some level, part of you reacts by thinking, why would I do that? Like for what? Why would I take a drawing implement and put it onto blank paper and make a shape of any kind? Like for what reason? To achieve what? And maybe that means that it would be wildly releasing and rejuvenating for your inner child, because a child never would ask that. You know, it's like not having the answer to the why, feeling like there is no why for that. Maybe she really does need to be let out for a little while to play. And then, of course, there are games, other kinds of games. I immediately go to the solitary playtime acts because I'm an introvert and I love being alone and I love doing these kinds of things by myself. But board games with friends, even pick up sports games, you know, mini golf or local league volleyball or something like that. Those are all kinds of play. Playing games, that's play. And can you think of any others? Anything that I'm missing? Put it in the comments down below. But remember, just like with an actual child, we're talking about the kind of play that is away from screens so that the mind is not being like controlled or directed by anything, but is totally free to relax and roam. So my inner child is in need. She likely needs play. And the other thing that she might need is quiet. And Melanie kind of did indicate this in her comment by saying, what was it? Time to myself away from the demands and expectations of others. So this is adjacent to that, but I've been thinking it through and I think that this is a really important one. Quiet, solitude, and reduced stimulation. The mind needs time to recover and process the experiences of life. So you're going along in life, going, doing. And if every time you take a break from all of that going and doing, you're stuffing screen media stimulation into your brain, then you go back to going, doing, and then you switch to brain, screen to brain, and it's just like that back and forth all day long from the time you wake up until the moment that you fall asleep. There's no time for recovery, especially if there's this constant background noise of the television or music playing all the time. And it does not escape me the irony of the fact that many of you are probably watching this video in that exact context, right? Filling the air in your space, filling a chunk of your day with some background stimulation. And I'm not saying that you should never, ever listen to music or watch YouTube or something. I'm just saying consider not doing it all the time. Like, consider not having stimulation while you're getting ready in the morning, while you're having a cup of coffee in the morning, while you're winding down in the evening. Consider building into your day some quiet, some silence to balance out the time that you do spend consuming the kinds of media that you enjoy consuming. I find that reading, speaking of consuming media, reading is a great segue into silence. It's still a bit stimulating and distracting. It doesn't leave the mind totally free to kind of wander in the way that play does, but it's pretty quiet. Reading is pretty quiet, especially when it comes along with solitude. I love to read and I love to take baths and I love to read in the bath, but I haven't gotten that much time to do that over the past 6 months. And I've only just recently been able to work it back into my schedule. And what's happening is that when I am able to read in the bath for 20 or 30 minutes, afterwards I find myself unaccountably refreshed, like rejuvenated beyond what makes sense for reading and beyond what makes sense for taking a bath. It's like more than the sum of its parts. And I think that this is why those reading baths are giving the inner child this like quiet time that she needs, because children need to rest. Another suggestion along these lines, one of my favorite suggestions to make, is to go to the library in person. Libraries are very quiet and soothing, and I think for a lot of us, reminiscent of childhood. I think a lot of us spent more time in libraries when we were kids than we do now. Sometimes I like to go to the library and walk around the kids' book section just to feel that feeling again. It sends a little taproot down into that well of excitement about reading that started in childhood, at least for me. And then I can take that and go to the adult books, the ones that I'm more likely to read now, and check out some books in the context of that original excitement. Very, very nourishing. Another suggestion is going on a walk, even just a short walk, without listening to something, without earbuds in, without a podcast or even music. Because again, it's like, what does the brain do without that stimulation, without being kind of captured and directed? Letting yourself loose sort of in an open field, letting your thoughts and like the feeling of being in your body loose in an open field without a frame like that, like a podcast or music or something like that. And that is one of the ones that I've just started doing. I've been going on like the littlest, tiniest walk, like 10-minute walk just around my neighborhood every morning this week. And that's the thing that strikes me the most about it. I'm halfway through the walk and I just kind of go to that place where I'm with myself again. And I think another way to say that is you kind of re-experience a thing that you experienced all the time in childhood and rarely experience in adulthood. And then beyond all of that, beyond all of those kind of actions or slightly more active strategies, there's just the enveloping quiet of actually doing nothing. Just allowing yourself to be alone, to sit, perhaps to look out the window, and to do nothing. This can be very hard to do. It's especially easy to do, though, on public transportation. If you take public transportation, it's the most natural thing in the world. The trick is, though, to leave your phone in your pocket or your bag. If you're on public transportation, just leave your phone alone, don't touch it, and you can easily give your inner child this gift of silence and solitude for however long you're on the bus or the train. For me, it's just choosing to sit in a chair and look out the window at the sky for 5 minutes when I feel like browsing for 5 minutes to give myself a break from whatever else it is that I'm doing. When I get that antsy feeling and I want to hop straight onto the internet, remembering that silence and peace with reduced stimulation, that is an actual break. I think of it, or have come to think of it, like when a baby or a toddler is freaking out at a party. You know, you just sometimes need to take the kid into a quiet back room in the house and rock her for a little while and just let her kind of come back to herself and calm down. There's part of me that still needs that. And that is really the takeaway. There is a part of us that still needs that. And acknowledging that and figuring out how to provide it for yourself, that's the trick. And that is what this comment was acknowledging, and that is why it caught my attention so completely. So thanks for bearing with me as I talked about in this video. I hope it was as useful to some of you as it has been for me. Thanks also to, I think it's Melanie. I think your name is Melanie. Thank you for the comment about which I went and made a whole video. And again, if you're interested in this, if this kind of thinking about the self makes a lot of sense to you and you want to pursue it further, I really recommend checking out out Julia Frodal's course. In this video, I've just been using my own words, just talking out loud, kind of letting you know how it's been striking me and what I've been thinking about. Julia's work goes far beyond this and is actually way better, like way better. But I hope that you still enjoyed this video anyway. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to see what you have to say in the comments. I'm sure there are a lot more suggestions and other things that I haven't thought about because it's just been a couple of days. So tell me how you nourish your inner child or how you plan to. And don't forget to take extra good care of yourself and your inner child so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world. We have no bananas today.